With Fraser being one of Australia's most popular tourism destinations with people from all over the world, getting away from the crowds and, more importantly, Helga and Sven is actually easier than you might think. All you need to do is go where they can't, north. Fraser Island is the world's largest sand island, just off the coast from Hervey Bay, about 260 kilometres from Brisbane. I'm touring the island in Toyota's top-of-the-line Prado Kakadu. My destination is Fraser's northernmost tip, Sandy Cape. It's out of the question for hire vehicles and tour companies, and it's the hardest and most remote part of Fraser to explore by four-wheel drive. The further north you go, the less people you'll see and the more difficult the off-roading. The real adventure starts at Indian Head Sandblow. When you tackle soft sand sections like Indian Head, try and find a good set of wheel tracks to follow, and if you can, get a run-up. You don't need to break the world land speed record, but a bit of controlled momentum does make it easier. The sandblow at Indian Head is notoriously soft, but you can make it look pretty easy just by letting your tyre pressures down to 20 psi or less. And if you're towing a trailer, it makes a huge difference if it tracks the same as the vehicle and it too has its tyre pressures let down. And I've stopped in some pretty soft sand here, so to get going again, I'm just going to turn the wheels over nice and slow. That way I stay on top of the sand and I don't bog down. On the other side of Indian Head, you can admire this massive headland, named by Captain Cook when he spotted some Aborigines standing on top of it as he sailed past. Further up the beach are the beautiful champagne pools. During the cooler part of the year, it's the perfect posse to see humpback whales migrating. As you head north to Orchard Beach, you'll be sharing the sand with just a few keen fishers. But if you really want to escape the crowds and don't mind a bit more of a challenge, then forge on. South Nagala is your first semi-challenge on your travels to the Sandy Cape. Now, when the tide's at its absolute lowest, you can sometimes bypass all these coffee rocks. But for the most part, you'll have to travel up this bypass road, which can be quite soft, and you'll usually see four-wheel drive numbers start to dwindle around here. The bypass track's an ideal place to watch people make soft sand driving look difficult. Any four-wheel drive with decent ground clearance and tyre pressures down to 20 psi or less can make it through this section with a bit of care. If you find yourself starting to sink and lose momentum in soft sand, accelerating hard and spinning your wheels will bog your vehicle very quickly. Sometimes slightly backing off on your throttle will help the vehicle climb back on top of the sand and stop it from sinking. The Sandy Cape on Fraser Island has its own unique sense of isolation, and to a large degree you can thank Nkgala Rocks for that, because a lot of people don't want to risk damaging their vehicles or getting stuck driving through this next section. So if you are going to attempt it, make sure your vehicle's got decent ground clearance and you've got a reasonable level of four-wheel drive experience. I'm going to tackle the coffee rocks. Tides and weather will determine how difficult the Nkgala Rocks section is. With its rear air suspension set to high, the Prado Kakadu can increase its ground clearance by a few inches to help keep any metalwork clear of damage. But on some larger rocks, you'll still need to be careful which line you take. The Kakadu has enough electronic gizmos to make Inspector Gadget jealous, and one of my favourite ones is this monitor on the dash, which helps you direct around objects and even lets you know which way your wheels are pointing. You only really have a window of 2 hours either side of low tide to get through Nkgala, and unless you're towing a very capable camper trailer like this UEV 490 from Conqueror Australia, leave it at a southern campsite. Once on the other side, you're home free to explore this remote Sandy Cape, and you'll only be sharing it with a handful of other people.